I got it! When I first heard about Dave being trapped in a maze...
1, 2, 3, 4!
I built a labyrinth. Can you believe it?
Dave is trapped in a cardboard maze in his living room and he can't get out.
Welcome to Dave Made a Minute, the podcast where a whole bunch of us are exploring the film Dave Made a Maze 1 minute at a time. The twist. Many of the participants have never seen the film. Some don't even know what film they're sampling. They get their minutes and they tackle them as they see fit. Here's your host from the Groundhog Day Project and Michael Myers Minute, Robert Black.
Minute 79, the credits roll. To tackle Minute 79, we have me, Robert Black of the upcoming The Room Minute, with clips that include Sean German and Dave Pallas of Groundhog Minute, Rick Ingham of Mad Max Minute, and Alan Sanders of The Wilder Ride.
You come home, there's a giant maze in your living room. You're like, what the? There's a giant maze in my living room. I've heard of people rearranging the furniture, but this is wackadoodle crazy. Give me a sense of that.
This doesn't make any sense.
Did I promise? Did I promise to myself? Let's do this. I promise.
It's like a fucking cocktail party in here.
I get a few words from you before you go.
I won't go through all the credits, of course. But everyone who worked on this movie, you created something beautiful, and I've enjoyed talking about it, and manipulating so many others to talk about it as well. As the credits roll, let's hear an outtake from Minute 75 regarding references to other films.
Is it too soon to start looking back and talk about the podcast itself?
No.
The Dave Made a Minute. Because one of the things I saw, and I discussed it in my earlier minutes with Dave Pallas, and I know a lot of other of the hosts have talked about parallels between particular scenes of this movie and scenes of other movies.
Yeah.
And going in, I wondered if that was on purpose, if that was part of the plan. We've been talking about projects and planning and so forth. And early on, Robert, you talked to some of the people involved in making the film, including the director, co-writer and director. And I don't think it ever came up. And so it makes me think of, another movie, as we do in The Hunt for Red October. There's an engineer who's on his station in a submarine, and his equipment has picked up what it's calling magma displacement. And he wants to follow. And for the folks that haven't seen The Hunt for Red October, the Red October is I guess this is Soviet-era Russia. It's a Russian submarine that uses a new kind of propulsion system that is not completely silent, but much more silent than a usual submarine that makes it very difficult to track. And so this American engineer, his equipment is telling him that there's magma displacement. And he says, well, he thinks he's able to track this new silent sub. And the way he explains it is that the software was originally designed for seismic activity. And so when it sees a signal that it can't place, I think the phrase he uses, it runs home to mama. It basically defaults to its first purpose. And so there's something out there, it doesn't know what it is, so it just says magma displacement. And this engineer figures out, this displacement is really this new high-tech Soviet sub that's hiding somewhere in the ocean. And I think that's, so I wonder is this something that's really there, all these parallels between this movie and all these other movies, or is it just a result of the hosts that Robert has brought in to help with this project? That these are all people that have podcasts or mostly have podcasts about movies, and we're used to thinking about movies and just dissecting movies and analyzing movies. And so if you just give us a single minute of something, and it turns out to be another movie, but it could have been a single minute of a play or a single minute of a television program. It's just a single minute of some drama. Without the rest of the movie as reference, we kind of don't know where to go, so we run home to mama. And, kind of what do we know? sort of what's the currency of our culture, it's movie references and movie quotes and those sort of things. So I noticed almost every minute, or at least a majority of the minutes and a majority of the hosts, someone is saying, oh, this is just like that movie. And the only concrete reference I think we have outside of what we've done in the podcast is there's the Kubrick Hall. There's the one corridor, or the Kubrick corridor. There's the one section of the maze that looks like a corridor from 2001. And I think that's the only concrete reference, or at least that's the only concrete reference I know that comes from the movie makers. That's a reference to another movie. Everything else is stuff that, that we've put in. It comes from us as podcasters. But so I wonder, is that really there? Is that something that other people are seeing? Is it something the movie makers intended? Or again, is it just we think in terms of movies and you're giving us something without a lot of reference to, hang things on or, points to give us reference. You're not giving us a compass and a map to help us find our way. So we're going back to what we know, which is movies. So we think of, so Harry directing this the documentary, Harry making the movie about Dave making the maze. That's like the filmmaker in Apocalypse Now. And the face on the wall, well, that's like the face in the mountain, the Gnome King in Return to Oz. And, this magical thing, oh, this is like Harry Potter. And oh, it's a trap. That's like Jedi. Or they're in, I think it's referenced as like a swamp, but there's one room that I swore that's the trash compactor. That room, the scene where they're on their knees to make it look like, they're waist deep in paper. That's the trash compactor from Star Wars. There's no other way to put it. Are these things, are these things there, or is this something that we're bringing in as just people who are used to thinking in terms of scenes from movies?
My impulse answer is a weird turn of phrase. A little bit of neither.
Okay.
Because of a couple things. Having talked to the director, Bill Watterson, a few times since the interview that we recorded, I know that he loves movies and obsesses about movies kind of like some of us. He wanted to make a movie and had made other short films and stuff before this. This was his first movie that actually exists and got out there. But also, I think most of the references in this movie are not explicitly deliberate. That hallway, the Kubrick hallway on the soundtrack listing, it says I forget the title of the track, but it's having lunch or having a conversation in the Kubrick hall. So that's deliberate. But even that, when I mentioned it to Bill, he says he actually saw it more as the hallway from Empire Strikes Back. And so it's two different things even in his head as to what was in that scene. But that also comes down to it's 2018, almost 19. Well, by the time this episode goes up, it'll be 2019. The way we deal in modern culture, a lot of it is what we get from popular media, what we get from movies and television. And so, yeah, this movies by minute format is us explicitly making these references, but I think all of us make these references constantly anyway. How do we understand these people going down into the pit with all the origami birds? If we've seen Star Wars and grew up on Star Wars, yeah, we see the trash compactor. If we're the director, he sees that scene as, he saw it as that, he also referenced that, but he saw it as, this is the in the shit Vietnam War moment, where they're all in the swamp, and they don't know where they're going, they don't know what's going to happen, and they're in danger. And so, all of the references, even, this is a fun one, because I don't think I've had the chance to bring it up on the show yet. They reference Raging Bull, specifically. They quote it.
Mm.
You fuck my wife.
Oh, right.
the recent screening at the Hive Gallery of this film with the director, someone asked him, so did you choose that line because there's a raging bull in the movie? And it's like, oh, that's clever. And then he's like, no. It was literally just the first black and white movie they thought of. But just by sheer coincidence, it fits in a whole other way. And if you see that other connection, it makes it deeper, even though it's not on purpose, or it's not consciously on purpose, but it's still there.
But for the sake of argument, they can say that it's on purpose.
Oh, they certainly could claim it now.
Yeah,
if it makes him look good,
he totally should have played that off.
Claim it was on purpose.
In the moment being asked, he was like, no, it's just the first thing. I was like, that is awesome.
See, that's why that's why I listen to podcasts about movies. I do not listen to the commentary tracks generally that are on like Blu-ray or DVD. I don't watch the special features that come with a movie. I don't go to like making of shorts and those kind of things because I don't know. It seems like a lot of times the artist doesn't know what they've created. And I think that's a perfect example because that's a great connection. You know, the Raging Bull and the Raging Bull.
Even the other connections you're talking about making, just because they're not deliberate doesn't mean they're not in Bill's head and Steve's head when they're writing this. They might not be thinking, oh, this is the Star Wars trash compactor scene. But if they grew up on Star Wars, because they're about the same age as I am, and I think you are, Sean. I think Rick's younger.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Then when they're thinking about this self-contained room where you're in danger, of course, somewhere in the back of their mind, that's the scene in Star Wars. It doesn't mean that's what they're going for, but that's what they get. Because that's how they think of movies. That's how they think of a bunch of characters in danger like that. And now an outtake from minute 76 about ideas and our execution.
I wanted it to be real. I wanted them to have suddenly magically, whether it was like some Harry Potter magic or he discovered some magical book, the Necronomicon or something, and all of a sudden they're in this 5D world, or we just never have it explained. I at least wanted it to be a real place. I didn't want it to wake up and go, oh, it's the Bob Newhart dream, and it was all just, the last 4 seasons were all just a dream.
Yeah, no, I like that. It was magic. It didn't have explanation of why. It just, his imagination became real. Cause I feel like, yeah, you're right. I feel like movies that deal with magic, they get scared and they have to over-explain it to the audience, or they pull the cop out at the end and they go, oh, it was all his imagination. And I go, oh, it's just another dream. Cause I think we've seen countless movies now where they have that at the end. I mean, I remember first seeing The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and being just mad that it was like, all in his dream, he was crazy. It was like, oh, god damn it, like, I invested time and energy into that, and to get that rug pulled out from you. Yeah, this is great to feel that. It was magic, and then they collapsed it, they killed the heart, and here we are.
The movie I just thought of was the one you covered last year, Dave, Groundhog Day.
Oh, Groundhog Day.
Because at one draft of the script, they were forced to write a scene that explained what was going on.
Yeah, the voodoo.
And it sucked.
Oh, God, yeah, I'm so glad the whole voodoo magic thing.
So they never filmed it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons Sean and I had so much fun going over it, and you clearly had it with the blog, which is that, like, you don't have a reason, so you get to just enjoy it. You don't have to, like, keep going back to some totem or some, like, here are our rule sets. No, there's no rule sets. It's just cardboard maze logic. Okay, beautiful. We're back to, like, 6-year-old mental logic where it's just like, oh, if it works for that, for a 6-year-old, that's how it works. Like, that's what it is.
And you can enjoy it.
I like that.
You can enjoy it on a surface level of just what the fantasy is, or you can project yourself onto Dave or onto Gordon or onto Annie and get into more of depth.
Yeah, Walt and I have sort of lamented about how modern filmmaking feels like they have to explain everything. And as long as you've given me a reasonable premise and a setup, I don't care if we have to take a certain leap. Just keep everything else after that feeling real, and I'm okay with however we got there.
Yeah. I think, and especially like the worst of the blockbusters are always, there's a MacGuffin, and they have to explain why the MacGuffin's important, and it feels so convoluted, or it feels so unnecessary, and they keep having to say it and remind you about the bomb, or about the thing, or the alien artifact, and you're just like, look, man, this is a sci-fi, this is a fantasy, this is supposed to be a big blockbuster film of just nonsense. Shut up. Shut your damn mouth and let me enjoy the scene.
But doesn't that run contrary to the whole concept of what the MacGuffin is? You mention it and you never talk about it again, and you realize, oh, it's just something motivating somebody else, but we don't really care.
Like that's what it like half the goddamn Nolan Batman movies, they're all just some MacGuffin in the beginning. It's like whether it's a water treatment thing, I guess the MacGuffin is kind of the bomb on the ferry. And then the nuclear bomb. Like there's this bomb that like that's the third act. The whole third act is like revolving around this thing, and then Batman or whoever have to overcome the yada yada yada.
If you miss certain scenes of this movie, as you did, Alan, the chrysalis is almost a MacGuffin. It's like, we have to build this thing so we can destroy the maze. And it doesn't matter what it is, but they do explain it in a couple clear lines right before, when they make the decision to build it.
But that's about how you defeat the maze, but that doesn't explain how the maze came to be.
But it goes back to the creation of the maze, because Dave deliberately didn't build a weak spot because he didn't want anyone to be able to destroy it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I don't think he ever says what was like the first thing he built in the maze was there. Like you never can figure out what was the first room of the maze.
The first room is where he puts the chrysalis and where he destroys it.
Okay.
Because they go to the center, and he said he started in the center and built outward.
Okay.
But he specifically says, they're like, if there's no weak spot to exploit, because I didn't make one. Because if he made one, then someone could destroy it.
Yeah.
And Harry has a great line. He says, you don't have to fail if you never finish anything. Which is like Dave's life in a nutshell.
Yeah, Dave's like, I've been there, man. like Harry's trying to give him some out. And he's like, no, man, that's put me on a real steep slope. I need to finish. I need to complete and finish for my mental sanity.
And I can relate to that one. Like, I've written so many like short stories and novels and things that then I just didn't bother sending to any publishers. Because it's like, why? So they can send me more rejection letters?
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of that sports analogy. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. And that's a hard thing when you're a creative person to put yourself out there and decide, is this the shot that makes it, or do I get it do I get it rebounded? Do I get it blocked? Do I get it shoved right back down my face? I think we all deal with that.
Yeah. I think if I remember, you kind of reminded me of, I think it was someone asked in an interview. They asked David Lynch one of those dumb questions like, "Where do you get your ideas from?" One of those things. But he actually had a half decent answer. He actually kind of like didn't just like laugh it off, and he pretty much I'm going to paraphrase it, but he pretty much just says that like in his mind there's a television and there's no remote, and just things come on the screen. He gets all these ideas on the screen. And he can't control the channel. Like if he knew where the good ideas would come from, he would know and he'd be there.
To be fair, that last line, and this is me editing the episode, that last line actually came from the interviewer and really from Leonard Cohen, not David Lynch, but it still fits.
And so he's like, you got your pad and paper, and you write that idea that you saw on the screen, you write it down. He says, then you come back to it, and he says, that idea may be good, but it may be the start of something, a bigger picture of an idea. Like here's a small piece of that idea, and you start thinking about it more, and you build off of it. So yeah, it's that idea of like, okay, maybe the book right now, maybe what you have right now, you're right, isn't it? But but this character or this one story arc here, this is good. Like I know this is good. Maybe what I have so far, maybe the beginning of my book is not good, but I like this conflict. I like it between this guy and that guy, or she's got to go here or something. And then you build that really good idea off of that. And you kind of restructure, where you get to step back and you see what's important.
By the way, here's the whole clip.
An idea comes, and you see it, and you hear it, and you know it.
How does it come?
It comes like on a TV in your mind.
You know, there's a line I've always loved of Leonard Cohen. He said, if I knew where the good songs came from, I would go there more often.
Absolutely. People, we don't do anything without an idea. So they're beautiful gifts. And I always say you desiring an idea is like a bait on a hook.
Yeah.
It can pull them in. And if you catch an idea that you love, that's a beautiful, beautiful day. And you write that idea down so you won't forget it. And that idea that you caught might just be a fragment of the whole, whatever it is you're working on. But now you have even more bait. Thinking about that small fragment, that little fish, will bring in more. And they'll come in and they'll hook on. And more come in, and pretty soon you might have a script, or a chair, or a painting, or an idea for a painting.
But they come as in small...
More often than not, small fragments. I like to think of it as in the other room, the puzzle is all together, but they keep flipping in just one piece at a time.
In the other room...
Over there.
In a sense, David, there's always another room somewhere.
That's a beautiful thing to think about.
Let's think about it a bit.
No, you think about it.
I remember I wrote a few quote books, but it was mostly like me as a kid in high school. I'd read or watch a movie and then try to write a book that's 90% me. I watched SWAT and I just wanted to make my own cop action movie, you know? So and I think about it now, I go, and I didn't finish the book. I had some megalomaniac guy who's going to blow up the Swiss Alps, some baloney like that, you know. I get that vibe of this, and I just, you know, I went through high school and I did, and I'm sure somewhere there's a marble notebook of a half-written novel.
But isn't that the interesting thing about the creative process? Because I've yet to be able to finish anything because I don't plot it out enough that by the time I get to a third of the way or a half of the way through, I've written myself into a corner. And then I go back and I look at other people and they say, oh, you got to know kind of an idea where you're going, let the characters breathe and speak, but you still need to know where they need to go.
Yeah.
And that's always been my problem, is I never plot out enough of it that I end up writing myself into a corner.
I think at least with my one dumb novel I wrote in high school, it's just I look back and I know, I wrote half of it and I introduced the villain, and the villain's convoluted plan of I don't know, I think he was trying to blow up Vatican City or something. I made some kind of megalomaniac guy. And he was going to blow up the Swiss Alps or something like that and destroy that part of Europe into Italy. Something to that extent. But I remember being thinking of the ending and being this is a generic action movie. I don't think this is good enough. And all I keep imagining is Colin Farrell. I'm I'm thinking too small minded because I just watched SWAT, you know. So I don't know what was my point. I even lost track of my own
think
point.
that was your point.
I think that was my point. Yeah, clearly that story's not that. It's not that interesting. Yeah, there you go. There it is. It wasn't that interesting.
There you go. You just wrote yourself into a corner.
My brain was in a corner.
So I guess we all have to deal with that.
Yeah,
because we all have a sense of creativity, because podcasting in and of itself is still a creative act. Even if you're analyzing and talking, if you're just talking nonsense, if you don't have any engagement, any kind of sense of storytelling behind you, nobody cares. You know, you've got to still have a sense of creating a show. You know, it's a start, a middle, and an end, even if it's just 1 minute at a time. And trying to have that confidence to throw it out there and hope people like it, but you still have to put some work into it. You can't just randomly go out there and do nothing and hope it works as well. And I think we all have to fight that we want to put ourselves out there, but we don't want to put ourselves out there because what if nobody likes what we do, but why are we doing it if nobody's going to listen to it?
Yeah.
You know, it's I always say this, I used to be in theater, and we did a lot of theater, and we'd be working for 8-9 weeks on a show, but who cares if nobody shows up to watch it? You got to have an audience.
It helps, yeah.
You gotta have an.
Yeah, it does. It really.
You gotta have an audience. I mean, I did theater, mostly community theater through school and community theater. But yeah, you gotta be almost doing the show for just like, don't even worry about the audience. You want to have the fun of you're doing it with your cast and crew. But obviously, yeah, like a lot of theater is like, it's mostly to help, someone's got, try and get money because of whatever reason, or even if it's volunteer work.
Because theater rental costs money.
Theater rental costs money, exactly. So you want to make sure that no one's out of pocket, or, that the money's going somewhere. But yeah, but I mean, the emotion you bring to it isn't, you don't want to bring it as like, I'm just doing a job, A to B. You want to be like, I'm doing it because I'm having fun and I'm saying these lines, and we're singing, we're dancing, and we're doing it because we're having fun, and then the audience will see it, and then, they'll have fun, and they'll tell their friends how much fun it was, Same thing with our podcast, like, you, especially with our movie by minute ones, where it's like, I want to tell people how good this movie is, or they never heard of this movie before, and I'm going to give them a reason in, half hour or hour chunks, or, even 10-minute chunks, of why they should come back tomorrow and hear a little bit more about why this movie's good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the emotion you want to bring to, and I don't even look at, I'm the person, I don't even look at the stats of my own podcast. I don't care. I care about having guests, having fun, talking about how fun Mystery Men is, I worry about that.
But isn't that the fine line? I mean, half of it is you don't want to try to be formulaic and decide we're only going to do things that we think people will like. But at the same time, you want people to like what you're doing. And you have to figure out, where is that balance? Where is the creative balance where you can still be you, it's your voice, it's your unique style, it's whatever you bring, but you still need an audience. And I think that's the thing artists struggle with. And a lot of times, that's why I think artists hope they have a manager or somebody else who can do all the other, marketing and managing and promoting, because they just want to create. But we're kind of all our own. We're like our own team. We have to be marketing. We have to be promotion. We have to be creative. We have to do the editing. We have to do the grunt work. Mm-hmm. We're like all in one, and trying to find that balance. I think, at least for me and Walt, we talk about this a lot. We're doing the show we like, but is it the show that enough people will also like that they'll want to listen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, this got deep.
Yeah.
And what do you do if it isn't?
Yeah, and for all you know, like, the audience for your show or for your movie might not show up for another 5 years.
Right.
Where they go, oh man, back in XYZ.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was a good movie.
That is crazy.
And then somebody goes, there was a podcast they did about that movie. Whoa, check it out. But like, you've moved on.
Yeah, why didn't somebody ever think to do Groundhog Minute 1 minute at a time? Damn it, there is one!
But like, does anyone have like a blog where they like really go in depth of it? I gotta see if there's a blog about that, So yeah.
There might be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky and dumb at the same time, where it's like, no one else is talking about Mystery Men. No one has talked about that movie in like 20 years. So it's like, I'm the only game in town. But at the same time, that's also a hard sell, is like, people are like, man, are there any good comic book ensemble films? I've seen Avengers Infinity War 10 times. Is there anything else that might have come out? And I go, well, something came out in the 90s. They go, was it Blade? Yeah, Blade was good. Don't get me wrong.
The Phantom?
Was it Phantom?
Like an actual. Was it Phantom? Was it The Shadow? No. Well, I mean, yes, they are movies, but like, not worth talking about.
Yeah, no, not at all. Anyway.
And an outtake from minute 77 about podcasting.
I think it's a good film, and I think every one of the hosts previously that has just seen a few minutes, just seen the 3 or 4 minutes that they've covered, I think they've all said that they're interested, or all the people that, I don't think anyone has said they're not interested in seeing the rest of the movie. That all the folks that have expressed an opinion one way or the other have said, I now want to see the whole thing.
And several have gone on to watch the movie once they finish recording their minutes.
Yeah. Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be rewarded. I think there's a good lesson there. And I think it draws some parallels to what you've been doing, Robert, because this, to a large extent, this movies by minutes thing and I don't know, maybe it applies to podcasting in general, is a very solitary endeavor, or at least I found, even with guests.
Yep.
One is where we record primarily remotely right now to kind of break the fourth wall. Like Robert and myself, we're not in the same place. We're not in the room together.
Nope.
We're connected remotely, and then eventually someone's going to have to edit this and put it together and upload it and kind of package it for consumption. And that is certainly a solitary endeavor, the editing and so forth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time alone, and then the prep, the watching the minute and looking stuff up and getting, lyrics to songs and stuff. A lot of time alone with a podcast. But this kind of project, bringing in the community, bringing in different groups of hosts each minute and different combinations. Some minutes were teams of people that regularly podcast together, but then there were certainly a lot of minutes where there are people that are not co-hosts. They don't do a show together, but they came together for this project.
Yeah.
So maybe, maybe Robert learned the lesson of this movie and kind of paid it forward to some others to say, hey, get together, get out of your self-imposed cardboard maze and get out and talk to some other people and, interact with your friends and loved ones that are there just waiting to be a part of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. My other current show I do by myself mostly. I've had guests a few times. You were on it for a few episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Michael Myers Minute. My upcoming, 2 projects, I have co-hosts lined up because doing it alone worked, and thematically I made it work as I went, because Halloween is all about being stalked and ending up alone.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't recommend that for a show like this. Talking about movies is so much more fun when you have people to talk to. And when you have lots of different people to talk to, because you get different opinions, different backgrounds that affect the way people think about movies. And it's interesting.
And I think it's worth the effort. And this is, it's kind of a pain to coordinate, just to coordinate schedules, to get guests or work with a co-host. The more people you have involved, and there's, something like this cast of thousands, to get everything coordinated. Sometimes it's easier, and it's very tempting to say, just screw it. I'll do it myself. It's just me, so I do it on my own schedule. But that's a lonely way to go. And I think it usually turns out to be worth the effort to bring other people in. You are not alone in the city. We are all alone in the city. You are not alone in the city. We are all alone in the city. You are not alone in the city. We are all alone in the city. You are not alone in the city. We are all alone in the city. Can I get my morning coffee? Can I leave my bags here? I wanna go out, see the city. I wanna go out, see the city. I'd like to see the city. Come back here,
and then I could probably disarm all the traps, and then we could finish this maze. Who is with me?
That was, not really me taking on minute 79 of Dave Made a Maze. Rather, it was clips that included Sean German and Dave Pallas of Groundhog Minute, Rick Ingham of Mad Max Minute, and Alan Sanders of The Wilder Ride. Sean, Dave, and Rick have finally escaped the maze. Next time, on Dave Made a Minute, we've got Alan Sanders of The Wilder Ride putting me on the spot for an interview as we ignore more credits in minute 80.
Thank you for listening to Dave Made a Minute. Intro dialogue snippets were taken from Dave Made a Maze, directed by Bill Watterson, written by Bill Watterson and Steve Sears, and produced by John Charles Meyer. Intro music is Diversion by The Equals, featured in the film Dave Made a Maze, and Life Cycle of a Match by Parvis Decree. Outro music is Leaving This Godforsaken Place and Her Presence is Strong Here by Parvis Decree. Dave Made a Minute is a production of Lemming Drop Studio and all other featured podcast producers. You can find more content at lemmingdrops.com. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Dave Made a Minute. If you like what you hear, throw us a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice, and check out all of the participants' other shows to spread the love around. Again, thank you for listening.
As long as we're all working together, this is going to be fine. It's going to be great.
I need you to notify the families of everyone who died here today.
Totally. Wait, what?